Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. In today's video, we will be continuing on our series in this demonstration game of Global War 1914. We are in the summer of 1914 and we're getting near the end of summer or end of this round. And there's only two nations left to go. One of them is the USA and the other one is China, which is controlled by the USA. I think I'll make two separate videos though. This one probably won't be very long. There's only one action that America will be taking, but I am going to talk about them a little bit in the context of this game. I'm not going to give too much of a history as I have with some of the other ones, because I think that most people that are watching this video has some sense of the history. In this game, like if you played the 36 game, you'll know that with the Americans, it takes them a while to get into the war. And then when they do, they can turn the tide of the game. Probably not so much in this game. It works a lot the same, where you build up your income until you get to a wartime economy. And then at that point, you can declare war. So that part works the same, but the way it works in this game though, you're probably not getting in there for the first 3/4 of the war. I mean, depending on how belligerent the Central Powers are in this game, because there are things that bring them their income up faster, and of course the dice rolling as well. If you roll a good dice in your income increases, then you're going to get there faster. But the games that I've played, the Americans don't get in till near the very end, and then when they do, it seems like they just get enough time to get to Europe, and they just get into the fighting, and then it's over. So like you can get there in time, but can you get there in time to affect the points outcome of the game? That's the question. Most of this game for the Allies is going to be won or lost by the British and the French, and to a lesser extent the Russians, because they'll probably go to revolution. But you do get to keep the points that they get at the time that Imperial Russia falls and becomes the Soviet Union. There's some points that are available there. So it's about doing a lot of different things if you're the Allies. Anyway, let's get into it a bit. So the US can declare war when it reaches 37 IPP. Again, like the 36 game, you're looking for that threshold. As I said in previous videos, the economies in this game are lower than the economies in World War II. It's just an earlier point in time, right, when there wasn't as much money to go around. So at 37 IPP, that's when you can start going to war. But of course, you can do a lot of things before that, and that's where the real strength of America in this game lies. It's in their income determined actions, and we'll get to those in a couple minutes. I just want to talk briefly. There is an Allied declaration of war penalty that says that if Britain or France, not Russia, just Britain or France, attack any minor power, one of the neutrals, that the Americans their economy will go down by 5 IPP. So there's that. The Monroe Doctrine exists in this game just like it does in the 36 game. So it basically it claims North, Central, and South America as an American zone. Like you're just not allowed to go there, and they won't necessarily go to war. I mean, it could happen if your income determined actions bring you that far, but they're allowed to go and enforce that doctrine, so that without declaring war, like they can go and get rid of you, even if your ships are just adjacent to North and Central or South America. Another thing that affects them is the German unrestricted submarine warfare. So Germany can do that, and instead of being +2 on their subs will be +4. But each time a German submarine does that, the American peacetime income goes up by 2. So if you got 2 subs that do it at the same time, then the American income is going to go up by 4. And like I said, the more belligerent the Central Powers are, and that would be an example of belligerence, the faster their income is going to go up. So they do have one minor power that is at level 2, where you've seen it before in this round with Bulgaria and Chile, where they added to the income of their controlling, or their controlling power, I guess you'd call it, the one where they have the diplomacy level at 2. So there is one on here, and it's Venezuela. However, until the Americans reach the full income, they only collect the income that's on the IPP chart. They don't get to collect that extra income from neutral powers like that. They will align nations along the way, like Cuba and Brazil, Liberia, Central America, at various times. And the Americans will not surrender. That's one of the things. So, again, like the 36 game, there are peacetime income increases for the belligerents that the Central Powers have. We talked about the unrestricted submarine warfare. When the Central Powers invade any neutral, you'll go up by $1. Central Powers captures London, that's 10. Captures Paris, that's 5. Japan joins the Central Powers, which didn't happen in this game, but if it did, that's 4. And then Italy and Japan both go for the Central Powers, that's another 4. So if it's just Italy that goes and and Japan doesn't, then there is no increase. Italy alone doesn't increase it, but Japan and Italy will increase it by 4, so you can get 8 out of that when you get the Japanese one as well. And then a lot of the income determined actions are what a Central Powers Japan does. The Americans seem to be more concerned about Japan than anywhere else. And then, of course, there's also the violations to the Monroe Doctrine. There is one thing on here that is incorrect on the sheets, and we're going to change that. When I was getting ready to do this video, I noticed it. So one of them says any nation in Central or South America joins the Central Powers, and that's +3. And then another one says Central Powers align any North, Central, or South American nation, and that's another +3. One of those should read if the Central Powers declare war on a nation in North, Central, or South America. And that both of those things, the way they're written, actually say the same thing in different words. Anyway, and of course, if there's a warship adjacent to any North, Central, or South America land zone, then that's +1 each time. So remember, like here, let's just take a look here. The Germans, for instance, were to align Argentina there, then there's 2 ships there. Not only would they pay that 3 IPP, well, they don't pay actually, the American income goes up by 3 for aligning that nation. There's also 2 ships there as well that are adjacent to South America, so that would actually take them up by 5. Anyway, before we get to any further, let's just do that roll, okay? Let's find out what's going to happen with America. And before I do it, let me just tilt this down a bit. So D6. Actually, just before I do that, let me just mention that they do get to do diplomacy and they do get technology, but as you will see in a little bit here, you have to reach certain income levels to be able to do that. So America at the start, they do start with level 1 of improved construction and level 1 of improved logistics. They don't get any more technology other than that. They do have 4 major factories. So when the time comes, they will be rolling 4 dice, but not until they reach a certain income level, and we'll get to that pretty quick. Anyway, let's roll the D6 and see where their income goes. They started with 3. They got 3 IPP right now, and 5. So that's a good roll. So the Americans are now at 8 IPP income. that is a good start for them, a really good start. There are random events which can affect that either way. Like I think there's one coming up in the next round that could take them down by 3. So we want to try to avoid that if we're the Americans, right? Anyway, so let's move on to, just looking at my papers here. Okay, what can we do now? So at level 4, and we are now at level 8, we can do cash and carry. So the Allied powers can build artillery, air, and naval class units at U.S. factories, and 1 per turn. These units are then lend-leased on the American turn. This costs Allied powers 1 IPP less to build. So basically what it means is, like France can build an artillery in the States, and then on the Americans' turn, they will lend-lease it to France, and the artillery would cost 4 IPP instead of 5 IPP. And when America does have the ability to lend-lease, they can also lend-lease. So this is aside from that. France can build their artillery there, and America can lend-lease them an artillery. So when the time comes for America to lend-lease, they would be sending 2 artillery to France in that case. So the next level that we'll be looking for, and we're 2 away from it, so we just about guaranteed of getting there, would be diplomacy. So at 10, the Americans can make diplomacy rolls in Latin and South America only. Here, let's just go over there and take a look here. So there's South America. Let's just zoom back out here. I had it all zoomed in. There we go. So Central and South America, Latin America. I mean, that I guess that would probably mean Mexico as well. They could make their diplomacy rolls. And then at 12 IPP, this is Japan is the problem. So this is only if Japan is a central power, and there's some things that they can do, quite a few things actually. We're not going to get into that. That's something that you can read. Since we're not doing it this game, then we won't worry about that too much. At 15 IPP, that's when the Americans can start lend-leasing to the Allies. And they can also close the Panama Canal. That's at 15 IPP. And then at 20, again, there's another one of Japan as a central power. The United States can declare war on Japan. All those peacetime income increases that Japan could be putting forth, like attacking China or blockading their ports or other things that Japan might be doing, that could just be sending them to war against the Americans faster. That's at 20 IPP. And then at 21 IPP, they can do research, so they can research technology. And then at 30, it's called wartime footing. And at that point, USA can move units outside of the lower 48, as they're known as, your home country, basically, in this game, to other US locations, including aligning minor nations and along US convoy route to British Midlands, if not at war. So it also may conduct diplomacy, but they were already able to do that. But now they can do it in the rest of the world, not just in the Americas. So that's at 30. And then there's a few different things about when they reach 37 IPP. There's 3 different things they can do as far as declaring war. But we're not going to get into that either. We'll talk about that late in the game when we get to it. So, like I said, the strength in America in this game is going to lie in their income determined actions. And we do have one already, and you should take advantage of those. Like if you're the Allies, definitely go and build some artillery or something over there. Like if the British are planning on building a seaplane, maybe build a seaplane over there, right? Anything you can do to get it a dollar cheaper. When you think about it, when you start adding it up from the second turn on, you're gonna save yourself, like $15 or so per game when you do that, right? So definitely worth doing that. And again, like Italy could be a part of it. I don't know that I would lend-lease anything to Japan, because if you watch the Japan video, you'll know an allied Japan doesn't really have that much to do. So lend-leasing them something, I mean, you're much better off sending it over to Europe. So like if you were to send an artillery or something to Italy and to France and then something else to Great Britain and Russia while they are still with the Allies. Who knows? Maybe they'll be there for the rest of the game. Anyway, so take advantage of the Americans while you're doing that. Now, I've had questions in the past about, what should I play if I'm a new player, or who should we have play something as a new player. Let's just sit over here for a couple minutes and take a look at this side of the board. So America would be an excellent country for somebody to play if they were a new player, because that allows them to take part in the game without really having to do all that much. By the time the Americans get to do anything in this game, that player will have been hanging around the table for a couple of days, just about, and they will have learned just by watching everybody else how to play the game. And so America would be an excellent one to do that. You have less to do in this game than you do in the other game. Like I said, I mean, there is a couple more things that are available to you, but it's really not that hard to do that cash and carry thing. I mean, that's really something that the other nations are doing themselves, right? You don't have to have the American player take it over there. France goes, oh yeah, you remember I built that artillery, here, I'll just grab it, when it's time to take it, right? And like America can take their turn when somebody else is going, because nothing's going to happen that's going to prevent them from doing that until late in the game when they're in the war, right? So you could just take America's turn while Russia's going, or the Ottomans or something. It's not going to affect anything. Unless it does affect something somehow, then, like you can figure that out, right? Like you wouldn't be allowed to Lend-Lease on Russia's turn if they don't get to Lend-Lease until America's turn begins, right? So that's pretty obvious. And the other thing about teaching a player to play when they're playing the Americans is that the Americans get to control the Chinese. Now, this will give them some practice in the game mechanics, because the how it works in China is pretty simple. It's just land combat. You don't have to worry about naval combat. You don't have to worry about amphibious assaults or strategic bombing. There's none of that stuff, none of the complex things that you would normally have to worry about. Even trench lines, you're not going to see any trench lines in China. Things just are not going to get built up that much in China that there would be a trench line. So that will give them the time to learn how to conduct combat and using terrain, right, to modify their movement and modify their numbers when they're rolling for combat, both on offense and defense. So yeah, America would be the perfect training ground for a new player. The Americans do have 3 IPP in this game. I think I'm just going to hang on to it. There's not really much I can do for the Americans. I'm not going to move anything. Like you couldn't move anything outside of the United States anyway. The one thing that I am concerned about, and I've been burned by this, Bob burned me pretty hard. I thought I'll play this game without reading the random events, and that was a bad idea, because I had nothing on Texas, and there was a ton of stuff on Mexico, and the Mexicans became Germans all of a sudden. Next thing I knew, the Germans were in Texas. There wasn't much I could do about it. So that's one thing that I worry about but if you know that could happen, then that's something. Like I've got a couple of things in Texas right now. In fact, you know what? We've got 1 infantry in, where is that? Washington. Let's just grab that infantry and put them down in Texas. Reaching up there. There we go. Because nobody's going to attack Washington, right? Nobody's going to want to bring the Americans into the war this early. So there we go. We've moved that dude over to down to Houston. Or is he in Dallas? I'm not sure. Anyway, there is one more thing. I keep looking around. Okay, so this was in the place unit box. There's also 4 infantry over there, but those are reserved. So the Americans aren't going to get those until they go to war. Let's put this one. There's nothing in this sea zone, so let's put it up there. There we go, torpedo boat destroyer. And the Americans will now collect 8 IPP. So let's just take 2 off here. And grab ourselves a 10. So the Americans have 11 IPP right now. Good for us. Anyway, that's about it. There really isn't much to talk about early in the game. Just making you aware of how America is played, and we'll learn more as the game goes on, right? So, thanks for joining me today. We'll get to China in our next video, and then that'll be it for the first round. I'll just tell you, I'm not going to just do the way that I've been doing. I wanted to do every nation give it its own video on the first one so that I could talk a little bit about that nation. But once we get to the second round, I will start grouping nations. Maybe not Germany. We'll see how long the German video goes, because there's also the random events to do and anything else that has to be done at the beginning of the round. And plus Germany is a big nation to play. But who knows, maybe I can get Germany and Britain in the same one. And then after that, I could group 2 or 3 or even 4 nations if there's not much to do in a round. So the videos will start moving a little bit faster. I'm still only going to put 1 video out a day, but the game will move a little bit faster. I don't have to explain everything. The further we get into the game, the less I'm going to have to explain, and the more we'll just be playing the game. So that's how it's going to work after the Chinese video that you'll get tomorrow. So take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.